So I've realized as I've perhaps got a bit older, a little bit more uglier, that the key here is the client happy? Has it answered the client brief? Has it done what I was briefed to do? And if the client is happy, then they'll give me more work, and that will produce more work through them and potentially people that they know.
Hello and welcome to Creativity for Sale podcast, a show to help you start and grow your life-changing creative career and business. My name is Radim Malinic and creativity changed my life. You see, I believe creativity can change your life too. I even wrote a book about it and it inspired this podcast. I've set out to interview the world's most brilliant creatives, designers, writers, musicians, makers and marketeers about their life-changing experiences with creativity. If you ever wanted to know how people go from their humble beginnings to the pinnacle of their success, our conversation should provide you with an intimate look into triumphs, challenges, and untold stories behind their creative endeavors. We also discuss the highs and lows of creative careers and creative life. So, thank you for joining me on this exploration of passion, creativity, innovation, and the boundless potential within us all. Let creativity change your life. Are you ready? Today's guest is the perfect example of someone who lives and breathes graphic design every day. Through his studio work, he creates meaningful design solutions for a variety of clients worldwide. His use of bold typography, whimsical illustration, and vibrant colors are all put in focus on visual storytelling that carries his excellent signature style. I've been a fan of his work for a while, and I'm sure he'll convert you too. It's my pleasure to introduce the Manchester's finest export, David Sedgwick. Hi Dave, it's good to see you and welcome to Creativity for Sale podcast.
Thank you for asking me to be here today. I appreciate it.
I've got a bit of a design crush on you, right? Because you're my opinion.
That's very kind of you.
Let's right out of the gates. Let's start with a compliment. No, I've always laughed from afar. I've always loved what you are doing, I have been doing. And then I met you in person and you're so nice guy.
Oh, wow. Thank you. The feeling is mutual. I think we met in Manchester, didn't we? Got a few years ago now. We both did a talk at something called Glug in Manchester. And yeah, we've stayed in touch since then properly, haven't we? On and off, obviously, like everyone, but through social media and the odd phone call and bumped into each other occasionally at various design events. So it's nice to have a proper, we've got an hour now, haven't we? So let's really
an hour, yeah. I think we can talk about that Glug event for an hour. I think I've got some sort of like a PTSD from that event because if you remember, I had to like outshout the room because no one was literally after the break, no one was paying attention. So I have to shout, which looked better in person rather than on the video. My tummy was showing from my t-shirt as I was like, I'm glad that video is actually gone. It was a fun talk. And the picture looks good. Like I've got like a panorama, like a whole wide angle picture, but I'm glad that they took it off.
I don't know why it's gone because I searched for it the other day for some reason. I think someone was asking me if I'd done any design talks and I thought I'll show them that one because I knew it was online. I couldn't find it anywhere. So yeah, maybe they just, I don't know. It's good to still go. I think
it's gone under. I believe it's gone under and luckily they took it off. And there's a secret. Oh, your clicker that didn't work.
Yeah, you did that.
That was my clicker.
You set that up for me.
No, I didn't set it up, but somehow they gave me my clicker and yeah, that didn't work. So it's just when you think about like how to tackle nerves, there's nothing better than the technical issue because you're not thinking about what was I supposed to say, what was I supposed to do.
Absolutely, and, I agree.
It happened to me. I did it in 2016 when my first book came out. I was contacted by Adobe to do talk for them at Adidas. And I was a fresh parent. I think it was naughty for me to actually not depart to Germany for 3 days. But yeah, it was like 6 weeks, 8 weeks in, like you don't sleep. It's just basically like you're just jaded. And I remember going to Adidas, feeling all a bit shaky, just you don't sleep, your body's a mess. And I think I had like a pint in a hotel the night before. And literally, I was not like the most confident pictures to go on. And my slides just wouldn't work. I was just there. And I was like, at this moment, I just feel everything's fine because I've got a problem to solve. I don't have to stew in my head. And it was just this moment. There's nothing better than not part of your shell when you have to fix something. I think that makes always the difference.
Yeah. And I think also it settles down the audience, everybody as well. It's not, I think there's an element that they see you suffering and that makes them feel at ease as well. So everybody's at ease when something goes wrong. I think if it's too polished and too highly professional, then everyone's like on edge, nervous, including me. I just did a talk this year off and I was so nervous. I was like physically being sick before it because I was just really, really nervous about it. And I hardly slept the night before. And then I thought, come on, can pull this together, Dave, right? You're on stage. There's loads of people waiting. And I walked on stage and it had been working fine. The equipment had been working fine. We'd had it on screen. Everything was fine. And it just completely cut off. The whole screen just completely, as I walked on, it went off. So I just turned and walked straight back off again to a bit of a laugh and everyone relaxed. And then it got on again and it was fine. It was absolutely fine. It was like, let's do this again. Let's go back on again. And yeah, you need a little bit of that. And I think like that Glug event, and it's a shame that they decided to end them because I know how hard it is putting events on and I know how difficult it is. And I know that things go wrong. And I think we accept that and people accept that. And that helps to make it a memorable occasion. You have to have some challenges, don't you? Like you say, you have to have some problems to solve. And that's part of the enjoyment of these kind of things.
I was in the same room of Barcelona, but I made a mistake that I've agreed to be on the third day. So that was a major mistake. I have learned from that mistake. Absolutely. Get it out of the way. Because in my opinion, it's a good secret that I always try to go as one of the first speakers, because everyone's so keen. And then everyone knows who you are for the rest of the conference. So they actually say, hey, it's not like an ego. I sell books.
Yeah. You need that. Yeah. Well, it's funny you said that. You did it because of the books. I did it so that I could have a few beers. So I stayed relatively sober and on form the night before, did my tour, and then I was able to really relax and enjoy it and have a couple of beers in the sunshine of Barcelona and watch some of the other talks, relax, knowing that I've done mine and I could just enjoy the next 24 hours. Yeah. But you're right. If you're there trying to not sell things, but you're there you want people to buy your book, then it's great that if you do it early, then they'll find you, won't they?
To a degree, I think it's more like an icebreaker. You want to connect with people because you've got this sort of speaker energy, and unless you either care, you don't care, you think, is anyone actually going to show up? I think that's the main sort of thing. Like, is anyone going to show up? Am I doing it for the right reason? So selling books is secondary. It's nice to connect because then the conversation that you have, let's say you go on as a second to last speaker, and then you've got 4 hours before everyone goes home and everyone wants to have a good conversation because mostly I'm there for conversations to see what is the state of the industry, how everyone operating, what's the current problem, what's the current pain point. It's more about conversation. Of course, there's also switching off and enjoying and relaxing. And my problem was with Barcelona in 2015 was that I was relaxing far too much before I was doing my talk. And idiotically, I think I wrote 7 talks in one, which was like, I had so much content that actually then became a book because I had so much to do. And yeah, but just for every talk, once you do it once, I always try to get it recorded and then analyze it and improve it. It's basically once you do it 6 or 7 times, that talk is golden and you can do it for the rest of the year. But that surprised me because you came across very confident in Manchester, but I guess it was a clicker. I was in the home soil.
I think, a little bit of that. And also, I don't know, I felt obviously I was really grateful to be asked to speak it off and I really, really enjoyed it. I was just nervous that but there's options, isn't there, Arthur? It's not just one event going on. There's a lot of events going on and there's some real big hitters in the design and creative industries speaking. And I was thinking, why would people want to come and hear little old me talking about my background and my journey? But I feel it's a bit embarrassing saying it, but it was an absolute sellout. Like I was shocked. Like I got in there about half an hour before I was due to start and it was already pretty full, the sort of lecture theatre. And I had a few mates who'd come as well to off and they were texting saying, we can't get in. There's a queue. We can't get in, which I guess, gives you a little bit of an ego boost, makes you feel so. I relaxed a little bit about that, but certainly in the morning of the event and then the lead up to doing it, I definitely felt that massive amount of nerves. I'm fine once I get up there. Once you start, absolutely fine. But that kind of the lead up to anything, whether it's, I don't know, any kind of occasion, I'm always a little bit nervous, always a little bit daunting. But I think you need a little bit of that, don't you? If you're going overly arrogant and confident, then you mess up. So nerves help to some extent.
They definitely do. Sometimes, I don't know if you ever get it, but things can go well. I have pushed myself in the first few years of doing 30, 40 talks a year to dismay of my partner. What is it that you want to do and what you want to achieve? But it became that easier. It's just because you get more confident. I remember like hearing this quote by Michael Phelps, the American swimmer, and he says, if you're not prepared, you're nervous. If you're not prepared, you're nervous. And you get so many design speakers who are still tweaking their slides or trying to work out the slides the night before. And that's the problem. That's why we are nervous, because I've seen people, and including myself, like we write what we want to say, and because you want to anchor yourself, because otherwise you can say anything. And then you end up trying to remember what you said. And there was a joke I wanted to do. And when you let go, that's where the good stuff happens. When you let go, and when people dread, oh, I lost my slides and my slides wouldn't work. I don't know what's. You have the story. You have lived the story. The reason why you're on the stage, you have the story.
That is so true. Yeah, absolutely. First 2 talks I did at university, that would have like actually cards, like a best man speech type. And I'd be like holding them and reading directly from it. And then your eyes are constantly on these cards and you're not engaging with the people listening. And because like you say, you want to say the right things and you want to come across in a certain way. But actually, I've realized that there's much more to it than that. It's much more about genuine honesty and truth and you being yourself. And you can only truly do that, I think. Yeah, you've got to be prepared. You've got to have something to talk about. But the idea of having like presenter notes or anything like that, for me, I don't bother with that anymore. I'd rather it just go in any direction and let's see where it takes us. You've always got a next slide. I think the good thing about presentations, if there's images, if it's going wrong, you just press the arrow key and you're on the next one and you can start again. You can start fresh like 100 times in the talk every time you click a button. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
The best bit is that no one really knows what you should be saying next, so you can say anything. But on the topic of speaking, were you always confident speaker in your work? For example, were you always confident presenting your work? Or I had to learn it. I literally, into my mid-20s, I was just like, I could not verbalize because of the lack of practice. I don't know, because we all thought, especially mid-2000s, that the work's doing the speaking on our behalf. You don't have to promote, you don't have to speak to clients too much. But then you find yourself going against these walls to realize I have to defend what I've created. I have to verbalize what I've actually put into this. How was your journey? Were you always confident speaker, or was it you had to learn?
I think communication is paramount to success in personal life and business life. And as a quote that I use in some talks along those lines, I think the ability to be able to communicate is massively important, especially in the industry that we work in. I see a tremendous amount of young creatives, graduates with amazing portfolios, fantastic design skills, but they've got a lack of communication skills when it comes to presenting their work or talking about their work. I think to myself an injustice to say that I am not confident. I think if I've done a really good project, or I feel it's a good project, and I feel I've answered the client brief, and I feel like they're going to like it, and I feel like it's going okay, then I am really confident at presenting it, because I can only do the best that I can do in the time I've got and the budget I've got. So I present it and say, look, this is the solution. And 9 times out of 10, the client's happy with that. And it's what you talked about a minute ago. If I'm prepared enough, if the work's good enough, then I'm confident at presenting it. If I'm not sure, if there's some things that I'm not 100% sure about or not certain about, if I don't think it's quite right, then an element of nerves and fear will come into my presentation. I was always, going back right to the beginning, I was always a bit of a show off at school. I was always loud. I was always I wasn't a naughty kid by any stretch. Now, I didn't get into trouble with the teachers, but I would always be putting my hand up. I would always be trying to act a bit of a joker in the class and make people laugh. And I think that probably comes down to being quite short as well in terms of height, stature, always having to make yourself bigger than you physically are by your voice and and show confidence. I'm not 100% massive confident person. If I walk into a room, I wouldn't be like, everybody listen to me by any stretch. It takes time to develop that confidence with people. But yeah, I was definitely always into drama and performing. I liked being on stage. I liked singing and reading and acting on stage at school. And I suppose I like that element of performance in terms of presenting. I like taking clients on a journey and making them feel like you haven't just knocked something up overnight on a computer. I like to be able to like take them through, this is where we started and this is where we are. And I think that's really important for clients. I think they need to see that journey and they need to hear that story. And I think they need to feel that soul and realism about the project. I think that they buy into that. And I think that's really important. And to be able to present and talk about your work is really crucial, especially in 2023, where you can buy design over the internet. Somebody in some part of the world is designing it. You hardly have any interaction with that person. And then they present a logo or a website at the end of it. And for me, I still love that interaction with the client, that kind of presenting, that kind of debating and discussing. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've answered your question there. I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I definitely think presenting, confidence in your presentation and in your work is important. And finally, I would say, like I say, I see a lot of design students who have got great skills, but then there's a shyness about presenting their work that then makes me question. I look at it and I think, oh, that's really, really good. And then they'll come in with, oh, I'm not sure about this. I've just put it in there because it's something we did in year 2 or year 3. And as soon as they show you that element of they're not so sure or they're a little bit negative, then I start to think, oh, I'm not so sure about it anymore now. So you can portray an element of confidence and that shows off in the work as well, I think. So it's important to remember that when presenting.
Oh, dude, there's so much you just said that
I know, sorry.
I can speak about. But no, it's amazing because, yeah, that little, like, the extra food that you need to grow, extra food in height, just like, obviously, but that your personality, and we all have that little sort of crutches and little props that I'm 6'2", and I think maybe I've overgrown my confidence. I was just like a little bit, I was terribly shy. I was terribly shy at first because of what you mentioned, like the drama, singing and kind of stuff. I was petrified of that until I discovered alcohol. And literally, I remember my sort of mid-teens, I was in a band standing on a stage playing to a few hundred people, some incoherent, death metal. But it was because I found a way how to switch off the voices and things that no one, I don't know about you, but I've never met anyone in my life who would say, I want you to be great. Like, let's see what steps we can take, how to make it great. So you try and you want to shut off the outside noises because you think that people think you're rubbish or whatever. There's so much. And then I went to be on a DJ and the DJ said always go better after a couple of pints because I was like, okay, we're in. But I remember being terribly shy about how to get to the next step. And it was just the interpersonal and working on myself within. Okay, I need to learn how to be more vocal about things. And the best thing I did was to move to a different country, speak second language, and just like, okay, now we do it. Now, and the change of scenery did a trick for me. But with the stuff that you mentioned, did you ever feel like the drama and the kind of stuff could be something that you do full time? Or is it like, how did you ever stay from your school? How did you end up in design? And was there ever any chance that you could be something completely different?
I was definitely always going to go down a creative route. I felt much more confident at primary school and high school in writing and in art and in, as you say, drama and that side of things than I did in maths. In fact, I failed my maths GCSE. I got a D despite having a tutor for the last kind of year of my time at school. And it's funny, they let me on to do A-levels because I was doing something called media studies. I was doing English language and literature, which I'll come to in a second. And I was doing art. And they let me on. They said, but you have to retake your maths because you need maths GCSE. Like we have to have that done. So retake it, resit the exam and you'll pass it and that'll be fine. I retook maths. It took about 6 months of tutoring again. I retook my maths GCSE. I'd already been at college for 6 months by that point. So it was a quarter of the way through your time on A level. And I failed it again. I got a worse grade. I got an E. So I'd gone from a D to an E. So I don't have maths GCSE. I struggle with numbers. I struggle with figures. I struggle with the academic side of learning. But creatively, feel more strongly and more confidently. But I loved writing. I really loved writing. I wanted to be a journalist, basically. I joined like a sort of junior journalism group. I was writing for the WWF, like the World Wildlife Foundation. I was writing articles for them. I did like a school magazine, a school kind of newspaper, like a zine every few months. I loved writing. I loved words. I still do. I was chatting to a guy from a design agency called D8 in Glasgow, a guy called Adrian Carroll. I don't know Adrian or not. He's a lovely guy. And he was saying like in my work, he really likes the use of language. There's also a guy you might know called Christopher Doyle in Australia. He's a fantastic creative designer and he likes language and words as well in his work. And I'm not a copywriter. I'm not pretending or trying to be, but I really still like words and how words make us feel. And I think, so I combine that really. So I wanted to be a journalist. So I studied language and literature, English language and literature at A level with the aim to be a journalist. That's what I wanted to do. But I got introduced to something called graphic design. I didn't even know what graphic design was at college. I was doing an art A level. I thought it was about just drawing flowers in a vase or drawing still human models, life drawing. I've forgotten the name of it then. That's what I thought art was. And I enjoyed it, but I wasn't great at it. I couldn't draw very well. I really struggled with drawing. There was people who would draw beautifully with pencil and they could make everything look so real and amazing. And I really struggled with drawing. And then one day, my tutor, a guy called Carl Jordan, he just said, have you ever heard of graphic design? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And he showed me a book of like album covers. And I was like, that's graphic design. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, that's it all. Everything came together. I was like, that's what I love. I love all that. I love like album covers and I love posters and I love VHS video cassette covers. And he was like, that's a career. You can make a career doing that. And there was about 40 of us on the art course. And I think 6 or 7 of us got together and said, could we do that instead? And he was like, yeah, okay. They didn't have a graphic design A level at Runshaw College where I went. But they made it. They made it for us 3 or 4. That was back in 96, 97, something like that. And then that was it. I never looked back. I did a foundation course, which I don't know if you do similar where you studied, but it's like a year after A level. It's 12 months of intense creativity. Let's use that as a term, where you do a bit of photography, a bit of film, a bit of graphic design, a bit of everything. It all kind of like, you taste everything and then you decide what you want to do at university. But I was obsessed with design then, and the English and the journalism and the writing just went and I just focused on design. And that would have been, about 1998, something like that. So it was always going to be creative, originally writing, still loved the use of language, but design has my heart now. And that's what I love. And it's down to a chance conversation to some extent with a tutor he probably doesn't remember me now, but without him, like I could be doing something completely different.
Oh, what an incredible story. Yeah. There's so much. Again, it's just all of these sort of sentences sort of trigger memories. Because around 96, we were in the studio with like 94 and I was 16, 15. And I was the one who fell into like making the covers for the tapes and didn't even have a CD. And the CD was still like, not to have your own CD. That was like, oh, you have to be on a proper record label. You have to do this. And I remember I was the one who was like, I suppose I'll do it. But then I remember find CorelDRAW on a computer in someone's office. Like it was the local print studio or whatever. And you're like, wait a minute, like it falls nicely together because I think our backgrounds are somewhat similar because for me, it was the music who got me into the creativity because I didn't join the dots until a very long time later. I was like, oh, wait a minute, people like me can do this because there was 0 graphic designers in my upbringing around my time. There were people who were using computers and they were like, trailblazers, but there was like wacky ways of comms design or whatever, but there was nothing. There was not this poetic way of it's graphic design. I'm a graphic designer. I do this for a living. I can actually sit here if I get it dirty to an extent. That was super, super exciting. But for me, it was the mixture of different worlds together and language for you was through the lyrics. I always find that sort of heavier music had the most beautiful lyrics, and then there's more like sort of poetry and music, poetry in motion. And I always found that way, like how can you adapt the reality into something different and just actually entice people to actually pay attention. Do you remember, like you mentioned, it was the book of album covers, but was there a specific piece of work when you said, that's it, I want to be as good as this, so I want to create this?
I seem to have a memory of it being something non-exciting as a Lightning Seeds album cover. I think it seemed to have I seem to remember it having some strawberries on it or something. I must check that out actually. But you're completely right. Music is definitely a sort of vehicle to getting into design. And you touched on it then, like tape cassettes. They used to make tape cassettes all the time, like hand drawing, like pull them out and you draw like all the sort of song titles and you'd use different colored pens and pencils and electroset and anything you get your hands on to make these amazing tape cassettes. And I guess, like you say, at the time, you're just doing it because it's fun or it's enjoyable or it's a process, recording the charts off the radio and then making these tape cassettes to listen to on a Walkman. But they became that to look back and you think that was the beginnings of designing and putting type on paper. Music's massively important, isn't it? And I guess back in the 90s when we were starting our careers, the late 90s, it was still the dream for most designers was to create album art, this beautiful kind of square format. It was obviously going more into CDs then, but it was still this square format. And that was the aim. It was like, can we design a CD cover or can we design a record sleeve? I'm still love album art and still love but now more so the way that music and design have really interweaved. So you look at artists now and it's not just the album art, is it? It's the video, obviously the music they produce, the way it's showcased in social media, the way it looks in a digital format, the merchandise that they're producing, the collaborations that these artists and musicians are doing with fashion and culture and art and things like that. I think music and design are really intertwined and long may that continue. And I know that we're in a very different world now with music where we listen to it on our headphones and we listen to it in the car, that there's still a real visual sense to music. It's not just audio, it's everything. So it's important that it stays like that.
I think it's exciting how things have changed, like since just the vinyl records and the musician. In essence, all they had to do is just to record music and then show up for the gig. And that was pretty much all they had to do. Whereas now we all have a sort of similar responsibility. Because when you think about it, a musician now records an album and they work to make sure that people hear the album. Like you get a lot of, because if we see, okay, here's the album, I'll take a year off and we'll see what happens. And it's this process of actually to make a connection with people. You have to get out there and actually meet people. So I think there's a lot of interesting points you made there, because if you think about it, how the world's changed. Before, a musician had to make an album and then had to show up for the gig and the rest was done by managers and stuff. Whereas now we've got fewer gatekeepers in all of this. And then you can record the music and put it on Spotify tomorrow. You can make your own cover. Like you can be a designer and make your own music, and you can be a musician making your own covers, because it's just like we are also much more intertwined. It's just a transition, isn't it? Like it's how do we perceive it? Because we might see this as a more of a hindrance that, okay, well, now I have to run my social media. I have to do this. I have to do a podcast with someone called Radim, we do more than ever, but it's quite exciting, I think, in a way, because even though our focus is slightly getting less away from the task at hand, because you can spend 6 months on a record cover 25 years ago, you can be really laboring the process. Whereas now we sometimes hope that a record cover will happen in 5-10 minutes. It's like, I've got an idea. Is this good enough? Whereas I think visual portrayal of something as important as an album is so hard to get right, because you can look at something, it makes sense. Sometimes you're like, I would never have thought of this. That's how amazing it is. And I think it surprises you. For me, the most poignant piece of design that made me realize I could do this was actually it was a copy of The Guardian. I remember it was a Neville Brody Helvetica heavy piece of Guardian. I was like, it just clicked, because I was like, there is a lot of work here. Like literally, like we talk about one album cover and then you've got like 100 pages on a Tuesday. I'm like, who's going to read this? How did they make it? What's going on? And it was just that element of, it just sort of clicked to me. And it sounds very rudimentary, very simple, but that was the moment. It was just like, oh yeah.
I wonder what the moment will be for this generation or the next generation. And I think that's exciting, isn't it? And it, like we're talking about album covers and newspapers, two things that are now not as powerful as they once were, maybe 20, 30 years ago. It'd be interesting to see. I think that how do people get into design in 2023? What are they going to say is the thing that made them go, wow, okay, I can do this. Like you've just said, I saw an album cover and thought I could do it. You saw a newspaper and thought you could do it. I'm interested to know what the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, is it going to be a TikTok video of some guys showing a Photoshop tutorial? Maybe it will be. For me, I see that and it's whatever. But for those guys, that might genuinely be their moment, seeing somebody doing something on a computer and going, oh, it's just a case of click there, press that, do that, set that, done. That's my concern. I mean, I'm going off on a tangent slightly, but that is my slight concern with those kind of videos, those sort of tutorial videos. And don't get me wrong, they come up on my Instagram occasionally and I think, oh, that's quite clever. I've never seen how that done before in Illustrator or in Photoshop, but I'm also left feeling a little bit empty because I'm like, all right, so anyone now can do that. Anybody can just do that exact same process, go on the computer, follow it step by step and produce the same piece of work. Whereas the album cover and the newspaper that you're talking about, yes, you looked at it and thought, oh, wow, that's a job. I can do that. But there was no tutorial to it. There was no kind of like guide. It was just there in front of you. And I think there's something lost a little bit in the world of design now, in the sense of I don't need to know how the Mona Lisa was painted. I just need to know it was painted. And I think that we are now living in a world in design where people are like, this is how I do this. This is how I do that. And I think we want that information, but there's also got to be a little bit of magic. There's got to be a little bit of magic still there, because that's what keeps us going. That's what makes us creative people. But there has to be a little bit of the dark arts, a little bit of a secret somewhere along the way. Because if we give every single trade secret away, then what we've got left at the end of it.
Yeah, I think what our sort of generation, what our current times make us believe that everyone's day is their sort of highlight reel. Like every day is an amazing day. Like it all works. It's all fine. And when you look at it, like you can't, I was talking to someone about it the other day about like getting into galleries. So like get into gallery, like there's gatekeepers, like there's a certain level, there's a criteria. Getting into magazines in mid 2000s was still, you have to be good enough to get in there. Whereas you can broadcast your stuff easily all day, every day. And there are people that believe that the good stuff should be following you as you go. And I remember recently I was reading a book called it's called From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. And it's literally about how to find happiness in the second part of your life. And he's there documenting like how, for example, J.S. Bach, famous composer, was outgrown by his kids. Like the kids did better work than him. He grew into obscurity. He had a sort of sunny period, and then and he was happier being educated and doing other things. But I think the way we turbocharge the expectations and the world out there, that we make people with very little experience being fresh in the industry, let them believe that, you know what, it's going to be amazing all the time. And the truth is, it won't be. I mean, it shouldn't be, because unless you fight it out with a blank piece of paper, you haven't really achieved something. Like you need to grow. Like I don't think artificial intelligence is a necessary problem right now, but it makes people believe that there's a shortcut, because I remember copying all lynda.com tutorials. Oh, how do you draw a pencil in Illustrator? How do you gradient and stuff? And of course, like these things keep coming up again, because you need to know your tool. Like when you see a musician on a stage, and if they're very good, it happens that they must have at least practiced for 10, 20,000 hours, because that's what makes them amazing. No one is talented out of the gates. You know, no one is, okay, I was born with amazing fingers and I can play everything. You might have a sort of predisposition to work and be good, but you have to work on yourself. And I think in that case, it goes so far back to actually realize, oh, it started clicking. It started clicking now, and it's good. Do you remember what was your first piece of work that you did?
Oh, I was thinking about this the other day, actually, because I've got loads of boxes here and all around the studio and some at home in the attic and things like that. And I don't think I ever did any paid design work or anything that was a commercial until I got my first job. And I was fortunate. I got my first job almost straight away out of university. But there was a method to that because I started to get internships and placements whilst I was at university. So any half-term holiday or any break I had, I was doing an internship in an agency. So when I left my degree, that sort of final day where you say goodbye to everybody, I had things lined up, and I had an internship at an agency called Tucker Clark Williams in Manchester. And they gave me a job after 2 weeks, which was really good. And they gave me a small piece of work. I might have it actually behind me. I won't get it, but it's in there somewhere. And all it was a series of simple postcards for a travel company, student travel company. It's horrendous to look at it now. It's awful. I remember just being so amazed that I'd produced something and it was printed, and it came back a couple of weeks later in these big cardboard boxes, and everybody was looking at these pieces of work. And I was sure there was going to be some mistakes and some errors. I'd done something wrong. It was some beer mats, and it was these cards, and it was a kind of student travel promotional thing. I just was so proud of myself that I'd gone from a number of years of education, certainly 3 years at university of struggling a little bit and feeling completely out of my depth, to getting a job and producing something that was printed and public and out there in the public, just being so happy about it. As I say, I've kept it. I've still got it behind me. It's still with me 20 odd years later. But then that just opens up another kind of tower, doesn't it, within you? Because you're like, actually, I want more of this. I want to produce more stuff. I want to print. I want more stuff to be printed. I want to be doing more work. I want my work to be seen by more people. I want to be doing advertising around the whole of the city or the whole of the UK. I want more of it. And it's a drive, actually. It's nice to see your work that you produce, maybe in isolation or in a small space, being seen by more people, which is when social media came along, and it was like, oh, I can actually put my work out there, and it will be seen by more people than just me or just the client or just a few people. And that was a real eye opener. The beginning of sort of Instagram and things like that, and social media was like, wow, this could be pretty cool. Actually, I could get my work to more people. Again, I've gone off on a massive tangent. I do remember to answer the question, I do remember the first piece of work, and I do remember feeling extraordinarily proud about it. And I'd hope that any young designer, whatever it is, whatever piece of work they've done, it does not matter whether it was packaging for some dog food or whether it's a campaign for Nike or whatever. It's so important to feel that sense of pride in producing your first piece of design work, and a proper design work, not a student brief or a university brief, but an actual piece that has been briefed to you by a client, and you've gone through the amends and you've artworked it, and it's gone to a printer or it's gone to a coder or it's gone to whoever to be properly made. I think never lose that.
There's definitely the magic when you've got a piece of whatever you create and just looking at it over and over and over again. This almost like a hypnotizing piece of work. And mine was terrible. Mine was a flyer for a Italian restaurant, for Brazilian night in an Italian restaurant. And I knew it was like, that was the first freelance piece of work. And I was equally happy because I've made it. I got paid. I got a client. I've sorted out the printing, and I was equally disappointed. I was like, that's my history. This is where we stand.
It's good that you knew that at that point. You were like, this is going to be important. I suppose I must have done, really, because I've kept it. Well, I didn't chuck it away. I took a sample and I've kept it in a drawer, and then that drawer became a box, and that box became a series of boxes, and then that boxes became so I've kept it. So yeah, we both knew at that point that we needed to keep them.
Yeah, I was lucky because afterwards I worked for a printing company, so I did dozens and dozens of flyers a week and stuff. And you normally keep like a stack of, I'm going to keep 10 of those or 20 of those. And then you move in house, you're like just checking 2 tons of paper because no one's going to ever need it. But what was interesting when you mentioned just a second ago was at the arrival of Instagram. And I remember in your talk, you mentioned you had this blockbuster thing with Foilco, when you rebranded Foilco, and you were like, it had X amount of thousands of likes, X amount of new thousand followers, 0 new work. That thing, was that a story?
Yeah, that is true, isn't it? Look, I'm not going to sit here now and pretend that I don't care about Instagram. Like, I think we would be lying if we didn't. We put work out there on social media. We want people to like it. We want people to say this is good. We want people to follow you. And it's like a little dopamine hit, isn't it? When someone gives you a like of a piece of work, you get that minute amount of dopamine. And I've seen some talks by some really good people talking about how social media works and that kind of like little ping like thing. I was obsessed by it for a while. I'm not going to lie. Like Instagram became an obsession. I would be posting stuff like constantly, stuff that wasn't even finished, half done stuff. I was doing stuff for Instagram to some extent. I was doing stuff to get likes. I was doing stuff to get followers. I was putting work out there that hadn't been completed and hadn't been finished. And I suppose it was probably about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, maybe the pandemic. I started to think I'm going to be a little bit less obsessed with it and less about putting work in progress on there and more about actually when I finish a project, I will put it on as a finished project as opposed to just posting stuff for the sake of it. So I was trying to curate an Instagram page that was like a website really of finished work, not just some people use Instagram like, oh, here's my view out the window today. Here's something I'm working on. I just want to use it more as a website. But going back to your point about the Foil Co project, yeah, I think we take on work to answer a client brief and to service our clients' needs and to get paid for it. And that happens hopefully in every project we do. And maybe one or two go wrong, but most projects, the client's happy, they get what they need and they pay you for it. And that's fine. That's enough. And then Instagram comes along and you're like, I want to put it out there on my social media and get some likes and some followers because I just want that little bit of ego boost. And I want to feel like that people like what I do. But it's trying to get the balance right, isn't it? I think as the last few years have gone on, I've realized it's not that important. Like I can put stuff out on Instagram now and get 10 likes, 20 likes. The algorithm has changed. Instagram has changed. The way we use social media has changed. There's many reasons why you might not get as many likes now as perhaps you want to get. And so I've realized as I've perhaps got a bit older, a little bit more uglier, that the key here is the client happy? Has it answered the client brief? Has it done what I was briefed to do? And if the client is happy, then they'll give me more work and that will produce more work through them and potentially people that they know. And maybe you've asked me in the past, you asked me before we came on air kind of thing, do you get all your work from Instagram? There was definitely a period of time where a lot of work was coming from Instagram. It's less and less now. And I think that's because I'm not as engaged in it as I once was, but also I'm really into relationships and communication and conversation. And I'm in a space here in Manchester that's full of other people, other types of businesses. And I'm a nice guy. As you said at the start, I talk to people. I get chatting to people. I've got a little dog. She walks around and I get chatting to people and work comes that way now. And I'm glad of that, really. I think Instagram's still really good. I think it's still really important. I still post on there. I still put stuff out there. I don't know if you follow me, but I put a lot of stories on. I try and dissect a project. I put like a background as to how I've come to the solution. People seem to really engage with that. And I like doing that because that gives me an opportunity to not just show the finished piece. Oh, here's what Dave did this week. It's actually, I went through fucking tons of changes and amends and client feedback to get there. And I enjoy Instagram for that and putting the Instagram stories on there, but I'm definitely not as obsessed as I once was. I really had got a problem with it and I'd be checking it all the time and I'd be checking Instagram all the time. I'd be checking other designers' Instagram, other creatives, people, my contemporaries, my peers, my competitors, people in the industry. And I'd be like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's so good. And now I've got a personal Instagram account, which is just pictures of my daughter really and family life and kind of holidays. And I follow people on that, people who also have personal Instagrams. And I'd probably be interested to see, but I think I probably spend more time looking at that than I do the design Instagram. I think I've hit a point where I'm like, actually interests me more. I want to see about people's lives more than I do necessarily their work. Because finally, just social media should be it's not just about getting work, is it? It should be about, so the word is social. It's supposed to be about, your social life. And I think I definitely figured that out, but I've gone on a journey to get there. Definitely gone on a journey to get there.
I think we just blurred the boundaries because all of these platforms were created for a specific reason. And then we all showed up and just blurred the usage, because once I started seeing people posting their work previews on LinkedIn, I was like, what are you doing? This is not a place to do it. And then you start seeing people on Facebook going like daily updates. Like, what are you doing? Why are you updating it? Like it's like for a minute. And then we blurred it and overused it. And of course, like they reinvented themselves for not to get our attention. I feel like Instagram and all that stuff is more about consuming rather than being proactive, because before it was more like, oh, you're on Facebook, let's be on Facebook. I had someone that explained to me like years ago, like, how do you use it? Because I was a MySpace guy, right? And the people I met on MySpace, and this is for some people who are listening to the show, never heard of MySpace. This was like the original social network for music. And people I met there, we were in the same boat, and it was so exciting that we still stay friends and still got clients from MySpace time. But everything gets to the point of saturation. So it's easy to kill time on this thing. It's easy to think, oh, I should be doing this, because I've got an analogy in Mindful Creative in the second book about the highway of creativity in life. And you got this multi-lane motorway, and we just, you can be happily in the side lane, just going slowly thinking, I'm doing this thing in my life, I'm fine. And you see these people whizzing past you, like being glitzy, bold, engaging, like loud, going somewhere, and they don't even know where they're going. And in my opinion, it's just we've reached the peak point of engagement with Instagram, because I don't get surprised with what I see every day. There's the stuff there, it's there. It's the same thing. The algorithm feeds you the same. The people are posting the same thing, where they're still expecting more likes every day, or they don't know. So it's this thing like, how do you surprise me? Because you want to watch something, you don't watch the same cartoon with children, you do, but you don't watch the same series. You're not going to open like Netflix and watch the first 5 things you've ever watched over and over again. Like, so we're going to change. We're going to look for something to make us feel something. And I think we are guilty, just like everybody else, by being ourselves and expecting someone being excited every day, because that doesn't happen. Like going back to the point of music, the music that the artists that you listen to, sometimes you skip a couple of albums. I like Slipknot, but on 2 of the albums, then the bits in between I don't need. Like there's the same stuff. But I think the younger generation is very obsessed with having followers all day, every day, like because it's, when you think about it, the younger creative mind, we are so fragile, so anxious. Like we seek external validation. And I made a point about your work in progress, posting work in progress, because I used to do it on Twitter, pre-Instagram. And there's the amazing sort of contradiction, because you do want to show a client work in progress, but you happily share it with like thousands of your followers. You're like, when they say, can we see a preview? No, not yet, but what do you think of it? And you just give it to strangers. There is definitely value in like sharing work in progress, like doing that kind of stuff. And we've all everyone goes through that phase. But as you mentioned earlier, it's the distance of growing older, and you grow into patience, because I could be working on something. I'm starting a second sort of self-initiated project of this year, because writing 2 books wasn't enough. And I finally crafted after a year of milling it in my head. I was like, oh, I can preview a post. I can put it, and I can, wait a minute, the website's ready, but the product's not on the website yet. Like, we need to just do this. Last time I've done a preview, I didn't include a link. It wasn't ready, and I missed some pre-sales. Like, it's just holding back and actually being patient. It is a life skill, because the devices, the streams, the highways are there. See this, see that. And many things came from sharing work in progress when the internet goes, oh, mate, I love this. We're like, I spent 10 minutes on this, whereas I spent 6 hours on a piece of work that you didn't, no one liked.
No one saw it, yeah. But I think that's important. I saw something you posted the other day on social media about, you hold back and then you see that someone else has done the exact same piece of work. And that's a scary thing, isn't it? Sometimes, especially if you've worked on something for so long, which is why sharing those kind of like work in progress stuff is important, because you can own it a little bit and be like, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm starting, and this is where I'm aiming to get to. And then you own that a little bit, because there's constantly seeing things that you're like, oh, that's so similar to something that I nearly did for a client, or almost presented, or did present, and it's just slightly changed or slightly tweaked. But yeah, I've definitely, the obsession with followers and social media has definitely waned in the last kind of, say, a few years of my life. And it wasn't a conscious decision. It's not like I sat there thinking, I have a problem. I think it just happened slowly over time. I just wasn't picking up my phone as much. I wasn't like, oh my God, fucking got to get this on Instagram. It was like, it just happened naturally a little bit. As you say, we're getting a bit older, aren't we, mate? That's the problem.
Yeah, no, I think if there was anything most helpful in my life to happen is to actually get older, because I had 10 years ago, that was my mid-30s. I had a horrific burnout because for me, the numbers were never really Instagram. For me, it was Behance. When Behance came through, and I was still 1 foot in advertising, working as an illustrator in advertising, obsessed with creating digital. I mean, I was literally obsessed with creating stuff, like thinking what's the next advertising style. I was commissioning photographers, creating things pre-3D of what we can do. And I was always trying to be ahead, like a step ahead, because unfortunately I subscribe to that machine that sort of feeds on now. So what you create disappears in 6 months. The advertising campaigns I did, but of course they're no longer around. Like some of them might be in like a book or whatever, but that was my problem with the work, that it was the already like the throwaway value of what we were creating, and but expecting long-term results. You want people to love you for the piece of work now, but stay with you for forever, which doesn't work. So for me, that was the pivot where where I wanted to create things that last longer. Doing editorial illustrations, that's a day's literally lifespan of a fly. It just lives a day. Like it's in a bin the next day. And it's a thrilling career. It's interesting, but I was like, what do I do that stays here for longer? What can I do? And for me, like writing was never an idea. I was like, I liked making little booklets. I like playing and I trying, but it was more going through a real sort of life-changing moment where I thought I was going to die crossing the street. I was so overworked and over-caffeinated and dehydrated. And I'm sure people who have listened to any of my podcasts will not be bored of that story, but it was a wake-up moment. It was like, okay, there's other things to worry about in life. And it's like you can change your life and actually buy less into it. And it's kind of like define you enough. How many likes do you need to be happy? Because no one knows that. And somehow when they've changed the algorithm, it doesn't matter if you get, instead of 500 likes, you get 40 likes, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter, because I found with Instagram especially, we used to get so much traffic and so much inquiries, and they were all time wasters. I realized that where people hovered, where the spheres where people are hovering, we got one project out of Instagram that actually kept us busy for 2 years. But that was anomaly. Like, just, it happened to be someone who's actually placed somewhere up there, because it's nice to be helping people getting their little ideas off the ground. But I just spend most of my time answering DMs with people going, hello. I was like, what you? No, I was like, I remember when they said hello, I was like, what is that, a phone? Are you expecting me to answer? Hello, can you hear me? Can you read this? No, it's funny because they're like, everything changes. Like we are a different generation to our parents. Our kids are a different generation to us, and all that. Everyone's got different skills and a different experiences of this. But
also, I think that you said then about wanting to produce something that has a lot. I think we've talked about how things change for us as we've got older. Obviously, the key thing for both of us was becoming parents, wasn't it? And the biggest project that we've worked on, the most important project, the one that has the biggest element of longevity is our children. And that was a massive change for me, because we have a lot of things in common here, just listening to you and just chatting. But I was the same. In my 30s, we just work all the time. So I would work during the day and I would get home. And I remember there was times I wouldn't even take my jacket off because I was, in inverted commas, so fucking busy that I didn't even have time to eat or to take my coat. I'd be like, I'm running through the door. I'd be like, my laptop would be out and I'd just got to finish this work. And then hours would turn into more hours. And before you know it, it's 11, 12 at night. You've not had anything to eat. You've not spent any time with your partner or even just got some comfy clothes on. And then I became a dad, and it was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work those hours anymore. It wouldn't be fair on my partner. It wouldn't be fair. Even more important, it wouldn't be fair on my child. I have to be there. I want to be there. I want to be there. It's not have to be. I want to be there. I want to experience all these different things that are happening in her life and in my life. And that was a game changer, because that stopped me chasing this, this goal, this unattainable goal that I'd set myself of, you say, being this amazing designer, working all the fucking time, getting all these likes on Instagram, having loads of money, all these things that I thought I wanted. They weren't that important anymore. They just weren't. Like, there was more important things. And she was.
Yeah, because you feel like you step out of yourself, because like the center of your world is here, but then you just pass it over. It's just, it doesn't matter. Like, there's other things in play. Because I remember I'd always wanted to work from home, because if I was to have a studio, I would need another computer at home in case there's some changes. And then I remember a year ago, actually most of this year, I was still sharing a studio with Dan Budja in Kingston. And I made a point of not having a home computer, like a laptop that I can just write. I'm just like, I am not like, we need changes, but there's tomorrow. You can wait. But 15 years ago, I would have died. I would like, they will sack me. They'll hate me. They will not pay me. It's just that growth and confidence, because I don't know about you, but I needed to work on myself, because I was always needed that validation. Like, okay, give me the work, amazing, high, get invoiced, finish this, like invoice, get paid. Like, it was all about like constant need to be on that sort of conveyor belt. Like, it had to move, and I had to keep moving. And I remember with my pivot this year, I was trying to less work on, I haven't said yes to new client project in pretty much a year. I've only worked with existing clients. Thank God that we could make it work. But I said no to all of it, because I wanted to change, because you just know only one version of yourself. So, okay, if you've been working 16 hours a day, you only know yourself doing that. And then you say, I'm going to stop. And it does crazy things to your mind and your body, because it's like a withdrawal symptom. Like, I need a couple of projects on the side. I just need some work on the side. Can I just do this? No. But it's really working, because like, we know our work from our point of view. We think that that's the only way to earn money. Like, we have to be creative. We have to be thankful. We have to be useful. We have to be all of that stuff. And then you realize, how does everybody else work? Because it just changes the perspective. And yeah, being a parent, from sometimes if I have 1 hour a day of work that we manage to do, that's like surprisingly like, that's a success. Yeah.
I'll tell you what happened to me as well. It was coronavirus, because we had a little girl at home who needed to be both entertained, educated, and most importantly, looked after. And there was two of us. And it was like, my wife was self-employed. She was needing to work. I was needing to work. So it was like, there's only one way to do this. Like, you'll do the morning, I'll do the afternoon. And then tomorrow I'll do the morning, you do the afternoon. So you're working at 50% capacity, basically. And it really made me realize that I was spending a tremendous amount of time during my working day, pre-COVID, procrastinating and doing 6 options when really I could have got away with doing 3 options, or just really working on stuff for too long, or taking too long to reply to emails, really like deliberating what I was saying, or just basically working too hard. And then I realized I could do the sort of similar kind of amount of work in half the time, really, if I was a bit better at how I did it, if I was more direct and a little bit more conscientious and able to make decisions a bit quicker. I'd say no to certain things that were important anymore. Small projects, the clients that didn't value me or my time were just using me because they thought I was an art worker. It's like, I can't do that anymore, because I'm only working for 4 hours today, because we're in a fucking pandemic and my daughter needs to be taught how to add up in the afternoon. So I ain't got time to do that anymore. And that was a big eye opener. Like you say, sometimes a good solid hour, a good real proper hour, if you work through your list, or you designing something and you just focus, you really focus, and you don't pick up your phone and you don't check an email, you don't get pinged an email notification, or nobody bothers you for that 1 hour, you can really work in that hour. And the aim for me, the goal for me is to try and get down to 4-day working week. I think that's what I want to do. I've done it. I'm so busy, but I meet people all the time. I can't do this. I can't do that because I'm really busy. And I'm like, I'm busy as well, but I'm trying to make time to do other things. I went on Tuesday this week. I volunteered to be a parent helper on the school trip to Chester. My daughter was on the school trip to Chester, and I said, I'll come and help because I want to see how she's getting on, but also I quite like working with children. And I thought, I'll do it. It's interesting. I'll go. And I was chatting to a few of the parents at the school gate. They were like, oh, I'd love to do that. I just don't have the time. I'm so busy. And I was thinking, is that the definition of success? Like being so busy that you can't ever do anything else? Or is the definition of success, which is how I'm seeing it now, the fact that I could just turn around and say, I'm not going to work today. I'm going to go on the school trip with my daughter, or I'm going to go home at 3:00 today, or I'm going to take Fridays off, or I'm going to not work on Monday because I can't be arsed. To me, that's the definition of success, because it means that I'm doing all right with the amount of time I've got, and I'm working hard enough in that time to earn enough money. And that's the most important thing. But I'm also able to not work in the evenings, like you say, not do the amends that need doing. I'll do them in the morning, not work at the weekends, not have a computer at home. And that's, as I'm 44, 45 next year, that's where I'm at right now. That's sort of, I love design. I love what I do. I'm fortunate that I've got a job being a designer. I'd never change it. I couldn't do anything else now. I couldn't work for anybody else. This is it now for the next however many years, 20 odd years. But it's not everything anymore by any stretch. It really is not. There are much more important things. And the big key is balance. It's balancing it out, working hard, and it's playing hard, or it's relaxing, or it's going home and spending time with your family and seeing your friends and that kind of thing. That's key.
I could ask you another 20 questions. We can do this for another, say, 5 or 6 hours, but that's an amazing point to finish on, because what you've described, it's all what it comes down to, because we feel like in the creative industry that we are the ones who got it hard. We have to work, we have to sort of hustle and stuff, but you speak to lawyers, you speak to whoever, everyone's got it hard. Like no one just wakes up and goes, give me the millions, I'll go back to bed. It just doesn't work that way. So, I'm glad that we are on a similar journey. You reevaluate, you look at it differently. And yeah, it's been great to watch your journey. It's great to be following your work for the last 10 more, if not more years. And yeah, I'm glad that you've reached that point where you feel happy and have enough of your sort of purpose, doing work that you're doing, which looks great. And you live in calm. I know I never say happy life, but calm. Happiness is calm. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens next. So thanks for being on the show. Thanks, it was great to have you. And we'll have to do this again.
Do it in 10 years and we'll see if I'm still saying the same thing. If I'm like, I'll be like, no, I'm back on Instagram. I'm posting every day. I'm working every hour. I'm just trying to make ends meet. Maybe we've just hit a decent part of your life. And I think that's it, isn't it? You look back at your 30s, like you said, and where you were then. Maybe this is our 40s for me. And maybe I'll look back on it differently when I'm 50s. Who knows? That's the joy of life, isn't it? We don't know. Yeah.
All right. You just made me to make this podcast for another 10 years.
Yeah. It's keeping you going. Give you a purpose.
Good to see you, Dave. Really good chatting.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Nice one, mate.
See you, dude.
You take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Creativity for Sale podcast. The show was produced and presented by me, Radim Malinic. Editing and audio production was masterfully done by Neil Mackay from 7 Million Bikes Podcasts. Theme music was written and produced by Robert Summerfield. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating or review. To get your own action plan on how to start and grow a life-changing creative business, you can get a copy of Creativity for Sale book via the links in show notes. As always, keep those creative fires burning, and until next time, I'm Radim Malinic, your guide through this exploration of passion, creativity, innovation, and the boundless potential within us all.